Hey guys, welcome to Mr. Smith's Kitchen. Brian, Mr. Smith Kitchen, as always. And today, since you stopped by, I thought we'd make a really cool cake. This cake comes from the 1920s. It is called a Lady Baltimore cake. What its background is, I don't know, but I do know that it has got just a ton of different flavors in it. It's got some lemon, it's got some cherries, both dried and maraschino, it's got some walnuts, it's got raisins, it's got figs, and that's just in the filling. Well, the lemon is, and it's in the cake. And it gets essentially a very old school, it's called boiled icing in the recipe, but it's really just a Swiss meringue done a little differently. The technique's a little different, but it's the exact same ingredients. Which, oddly enough, I've made a Swiss meringue before, but it has been quite some time. Normally, the only time it gets made in our house, which it's one of my favorites, is on my birthday, and I'm not allowed to make my own birthday cake. And that goes on a golden chiffon cake that is my favorite cake that Chris makes for my birthday, so I don't get to actually make it. But I think this is going to be fun all the same. It's a wonderful 9-inch 2-layer cake that I think is going to be just absolutely awesome. First thing we're going to do is set turn our oven on. We're going to turn it on 350 degrees, get that warming up. So now we know right there in the beginning. I didn't forget this time. And then we, warm your oven up, get that going. If you are new to my channel, welcome. If this is your first video, I hope you get something out of this video. Check out some of my other ones. I've got a lot of stuff to choose from, both dinner and baking. Today, we happen to be baking. If you are returning or a new subscriber, thank you. Thank you very much for coming back. Thanks for joining the neighborhood and wanting to hang out with me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Comments always welcome. Just be nice. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to have a difference of opinion. Just think before you type. Don't forget the notification bell. It'll be down here somewhere on the below me. I think it's over here. Might be over here. I'm pretty sure it's over here. And I think that's it. So that being said, let's head on down here to the counter and we'll get started on making this wonderful 2-layer cake. All right, hold on for me 1 second. Okay, we are down here at the counter. So before I forget, I will give you all your measurements in cups, tablespoons, teaspoons. I also give them out in grams. That way everybody can play along, right? Not everybody measures in just cups, tablespoons, and teaspoons. Let me move you up just a little bit. I feel like I'm leaning down into you. But there are people who measure out in grams. I think grams are much more accurate. And if you don't have a scale, you should think about getting one. They're an absolutely wonderful thing to have. They give you accuracy and consistency no matter what. So, tools you'll need: a couple bowls, stand mixer, or a hand mixer, either one. Or if you are brave enough, a spoon and a bowl. I'm not that brave or so inclined. I have a stand mixer, I'm going to use it. We also use a hand mixer though, not that big a deal. So after we set our oven for 350 degrees, the next thing I did was flour and butter 2 9-inch pie pans, or cake pans, as the case may be. You want to make sure, and I got parchment paper in the bottom of them, that way I know they won't stick to the bottom. Nothing worse than having a cake stick to the bottom of a pan. Absolute disaster. After that, we'll start with our dry ingredients. I have got 2 1/4 cups of flour, and in this case it's 315 grams, which means when they scooped it out of the flour container to make the original recipe, they just used the measuring cup and then leveled it off, so it packed it down. So that's actually more than 2.5 cups in gram weight. And to this, I have got 2 teaspoons of baking soda at 8 grams and 1 teaspoon of kosher salt at 1 gram. Now, if you don't have any kosher salt, it's okay. You don't absolutely need kosher salt. There's no rule written. plain old table salt is just as good. Yeah, what it does is a table salt just is it's got iodine in it, so it tastes more like salt. Or kosher salt doesn't. It's a little pure salt, and it just focuses more on bringing out the flavors in hand. So we'll get those three ingredients whisked together real quick. And then we can set this to the side, just like such. So the next thing we got to do after we set that to the side is play with the mixer for a little bit. So paddle attachment, clean bowl. I have got 1 stick of softened butter, that's 114 grams, half a cup, or 1 stick, that we're going to put in here. And to that, we are going to add, is it 1.5? Yes, 1.5 cups of just plain old granulated sugar. Same stuff you put in your coffee or on your cereal or in your cake. Now you'll notice mine's a little offset in color, and that's because it is a natural cane sugar. It hasn't been processed as much. Basically, they took the sugar cane, ground it up, and packaged it up and sent it out. And oddly enough, they charge more. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that, but they seem to charge more for less work. And that goes with almost everything. Kind of mind-boggling, really. But anyhow, I could be wrong on that. It might be a lot more work, but I don't think it is. They're missing a few steps. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cream this, and we're going to turn it on like a medium-high, and let this run for about 3 to 4 minutes until it's light and fluffy, or mashed potato consistency. All right, so we let that go for about 3 minutes, and you can go longer. It depends on how room temperature or softened your butter is, because you want it to be creamy and not chunky. You're not going to get smooth just because your sugar's in here and it hasn't heated up or anything like that yet, so it's still a little grainy, but that's all right. So what we're looking for, I'll show you real quick, and you want to scrape your bowl as often as possible, because you want to make sure everything's mixed up, especially on the bottom. It doesn't matter if you're using a stand mixer or a hand mixer, you'll always have dead spots in your bowl. But what we're looking for is mashed potato consistency. Light in color because the butter's no longer yellow, it's turned white where we beat it, or in my case an offset white because I don't use white sugar. And fluffy, it just looks like mashed potatoes. That's the consistency you're looking for. So now that we've got that mixed up, light and fluffy, and we're down to the home stretch now. Almost. So we grab our dry ingredients. I also have 1 cup, 235 milliliters of whole milk, and I've got it at room temperature. Butter softened to room temperature, milk room temperature. I'm going to split this into 3 parts. I'm going to dump 1/3 of it in, right? So we have about 1/3 of it in. This doesn't have to be exact. You just want around 1/3. And we're going to combine this third we just put in here, and we're just going to combine it. It doesn't have to be perfect, right, or complete, because we're just starting. And then I'm going to take half my milk and I'm going to put it in, just like such. And then I'll let that mix up. I'll put another 1/3 in of the dry mix, the rest of my milk, and then the final 1/3. You always want to end on dry. Why? I don't know. That's just what the experts say, so that's what I do. So when I get back, we can move on to the next step. Okay, so we got that done. We got our milk and our dry in there, and I put it in a separate bowl. Two reasons, not 3, 2. The first reason is I only have 1 bowl for my mixer. The second reason is I like a wider bowl to be able to, because what we're going to do is we're going to beat up some egg whites, make it to stiff peaks like a meringue. And what is a meringue? And then we're going to fold it into our batter here. As you can see right now, it's really stiff. I mean, it'll hold the spatula up. So I went ahead, transferred it into a wider bowl where I could easily fold, and I cleaned my mixing bowl. Now, you want to make sure that this is clean and oil free, doesn't have any grease on it, no butter or anything like that. Same with your whisk attachment. If not, there's a good possibility that your egg whites won't whip to their full potential. And then after I washed it, I actually took some vinegar and cleaned that up real quick. So I've got 4 large egg whites in here. So I took 4 large eggs, separated the yolk from the white. And save your yolks. You can make things with them. You can do a custard. You can do, I just learned a lemon curd is egg yolks, lemon juice, lemon, and lemon zest. All kinds of cool things you can do with egg yolk. But we're going to go ahead and whip this up, and we're going to, while it's spinning, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons, 30 milliliters of lemon juice. That is the lemon flavor that goes in our cake. And now I'm just going to go ahead and whip this to stiff peaks. And I'm probably not going to take it any higher than 8 on my mixer. Very rarely do I use 10. Alright, so we have whipped up our egg whites. Isn't that so cool how you can take just what was liquid whites and make it something that's as beautiful as that. See how that is sticking straight up? Got a little wiggle to it. That is a stiff peak. It has the exact same, it's like a mirror image where I pulled it apart right here in the mixer. So go ahead and get that off there like such. And let's go ahead and get this stand mixer out of the way right quick, because we won't be needing it again for a minute. I will say, KitchenAid makes a wonderful stand mixer, you know, and I'm not sponsored by them or anything, not yet, but if you're interested, let me know. I doubt they even know I exist, but those bad boys weigh a ton for a mixer. I mean, I have not ever owned any other mixer, so I don't know how it compares. All right, so egg whites right here, meringue. We are going to take this, we're going to take a third of it at a time, and we are going to put this in our mix. I don't want to set that on the oven because I don't want it to get hot. That could be, I don't know what it would do, but I don't want it to do that. So when you are folding something in, you want to go circle and then fold it over. All right, just like that. And we're going to do this in 3 parts, and we're going to fold it in until we have no more white streaks. Don't freak out or get excited if your egg whites deflate a little bit as you do this. They're going to. I mean, we're working them, and you're adding it into something dense, but you're not, by folding it in, you're not going to get rid of all of that light airiness, and it'll help your mix get some volume, and it'll loosen it up. Okay, so we got our egg whites folded in, and look at that. Now it's so much creamier. It's doubled in volume. So now what we have to do is put it in our pans, and we want to put them in evenly. Now I'm using my scale so that way it's accurate. Once again, good time to pick up a scale. But if you don't, that's okay. You just want it to be close. Last thing you want to do is start down that road with, you know, putting them in evenly, and all of a sudden you don't have them even, and you got one that isn't done, one that is done, one that, you know, might be overdone because you didn't check them both. I mean, there's just a lot of what ifs that can go into that. So it's just easier to, yeah, do it with a scale, I think. But then, heck, what do I know? I got 536 grams in each pan. Now, don't trust that to be the same every time. Like when I make pie crust, it comes out a little different almost every time. It's always right around 640 for my pie crust, but it can change. It just depends on the day, the humidity, you know, temperature. There are so many variables to it, but that's the general right there. So now I know next time I make this, you know, it'll be right around 500 grams I can start with at any rate, because that won't change. It won't be that far off every time. So now we just take our offset spatula, smooth these out right quick, like such. You want to get them kind of even, because if you don't, now if you don't have an offset spatula, you can use a spoon, whatever you have to get them evened out. If you don't even them, get them close to evened out, what'll happen is, it may not happen, but it could happen, and I've seen it happen. Your cakes could get floppy, they'll uneven, tilt, whatever. So that helps them to rise evenly, along with a good pan. I've learned that too. So anyhow, we're going to put these in the oven, and when you put them in the oven, make sure you leave some space in between them. You don't run them right up on top of each other like a Manhattan hotel. Because you want to be able to give them some space to let the air circulate. So, because if you have them button up right next to each other, so to speak, if they're touching, you'll still get airflow, because most cake pans have a lip around it, but you won't get enough airflow on that in between compared to the rest of it, which will make your cakes bake funny, and they may bake uneven. So you may have one spot that's not done, one spot that is done. So give it a couple inches of space in between them, and we are going to bake these at the 350 degrees we set our oven at for about 30 to 35 minutes. I'm going to check them at about 28 minutes and see where we're at, and let them go a minute or two after that until I put a toothpick in it and it comes out clean. Now by clean I mean no batter. It can have crumb on it, but no batter, and it should be pulling away from the edges. There should be a little gap in between the cake and the edge of the pan. That tells me that they're done. So when I come back, we'll give those both a check. After I pull them out, I'll pull them out of the oven. We'll give both a check on those and see where we're at. All right, hold on for me 1 second. Okay, so timer's going off. Let's go ahead and get the oven door open here, and we'll pull them out and toothpick test them. Take a look at them. And hopefully they are done. Now I can already see that they are pulling away from the sides. That's a good sign. So then we'll just take our toothpick, put it in the center right there, pull it out, and that one is clean. I don't know if you can see that or not, but hey, there's barely even any crumb on there at all. I'm sure you can't see that, but I know it's there. And we'll do this one, and they came out just as clean, just like such. So I can go ahead and turn my oven off, just like that, and we'll grab one of these pans real quick so you can see what I'm talking about with the pulling away from the side gig. See right there how it's not touching the side anymore? We got that gap. That's what we want. So what do we do next? Well, the next thing we have to do is let these bad boys cool. So we're gonna let those cool for about 10 minutes in the pan, all right? And then after that, we'll take them out of the pan and let them just cool on the rack without, just sitting on the rack till they're at room temperature. We don't want to leave them in the pan because the pan's still hot, and it's going to stay hot for a little while, which means it's still continuing to bake those cakes. We don't want them to bake too much or they'll be dry. So we'll leave them in there for another about another 9 minutes, and we will take them out, let them cool down, and when I come back, we're going to make the frosting, all right? Or the icing, I should say. So I'll see you here in just a second. Here we are, right here, cakes, cooled, and now we get to make our icing. I put them back. Hold on for me 1 second. Okay, so cakes are cool. Now we gotta make some icing. We are going to essentially make a Swiss meringue icing. They call it a boiled icing in this recipe, and I'm going to do it the same way they do it, but I'm going to use a little. I'm changing up the recipe just a little bit because it is just a Swiss meringue. The only difference is the technique and how it's made, and I'll explain the differences as we go. But don't be intimidated by it either way it goes. It's not hard, but it does require a candy thermometer. There's other ways to check it, but a candy thermometer is probably best. They're cheap. If you don't own one, you can pick one up for $8 to $12, unless you want to get fancy. And it just makes the process so much easier. So, hold on for me 1 second. We'll get back down here to the counter and get started on this boiled icing. All right, hold on. Okay, I know it looks really busy right here, but there's a lot of little parts. We want to have them all nearby for the most part. First thing we're going to do is in this small bowl, I have got 2/3 a cup of fine chopped candied cherries. It's 55 grams. Put those in the bowl. Then I've got 2/3 a cup, 55 grams of regular or maraschino cherries. Now, you can use one or the other. You don't have to use both. I just thought both would make it more interesting. So the recipe that we're following said you could use one or the other. I thought, why not split it down the middle, right? So it's 3/4 of one or the other, or 2/3 a cup of each at 55 grams a piece, or 110 grams total. And then I have some finely chopped up raisins that we're going to put in there. And we got some finely chopped up figs. Figs are an interesting character. I only had them in Fig Newton cookies prior to this recipe, so this will be a new and interesting gig. I can tell you they're sweet and they're chewy. They're like a raisin. And that's 120 grams of those. And then I've got a half a cup, 60 grams of walnuts. I give you all the 120 grams of figs, 80 grams of raisins, a total of 110 grams of the cherries, however you want to do them, 60 grams of walnut. I think that's it. Yep. Got that in there. Now we're just going to mix this up real quick. Now I should put this in a bigger bowl, I think, because we got to add, we're going to add some of the icing to it. But it's all right. We can change out the bowls here shortly. All right, so the next thing we want to do, after we get that mixed up, isn't that the most beautiful, like, Chex Mix, trail mix looking thing you've ever seen in your life? I bet that would be a good trail mix, to be honest with you. Okay, so now we're going to move over here to the stove. This is our next gig. And please don't be intimidated by this. If you are and this isn't something you want to try, that's fine. You can use a buttercream icing. This was kind of the buttercream icing of its day. I have a heavy bottom pan. In this case, it's cast iron. But you want to try to use a heavy bottom saucepan for this. And in this saucepan right here is my candy thermometer. I have 2 cups, 400 grams of sugar. I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to follow that up with 1/3 cup or 80 milliliters of water. All right, just plain old water. And then in this cup right here, in this measuring cup right here, I have a 1/4 cup of light cornstarch. I know you can't really see it, it just looks empty, but it's there. And we're going to put this in there. Wow. This is, and I keep calling it a boiled icing, and that's because that's what the recipe refers to it as, but it's actually called a 7-minute icing. And the reason why it's called 7 minutes is one of the ways you can make this is to actually put all this in a double boiler Okay, so you would have this filled with a little bit of water, about an inch or two of water, a metal or anything other than glass pan or bowl on top of this, preferably a metal bowl. And then you would get it up to 160 degrees, right, in the double boiler, while just stirring it a little bit. And then once it hits 160 degrees, you would take the whole thing off, use a hand mixer, and start mixing it for 6 minutes. And then you would add 1 teaspoon of vanilla in, and you would beat it for another minute, or until you have stiff peaks. But it takes about 7 minutes, and that's why they call it a 7-minute icing. So what we're going to do is, that the most I'm going to do to this, because we're not going to stir this or anything, I'm going to get that sugar down in there so it's completely covered. I got my temperatures on, and the reason why you don't want to mess with this is because if you stir it, what will happen is your sugar won't melt, and it'll start to crystallize along the edges, and it changes everything in this pan. But we're going to heat this up to 240 degrees Fahrenheit, 115 degrees Celsius, and once it hits that stage, we can add it to our meringue, because we're going to make more meringue, hence the Swiss meringue. Like I said, the only difference between the two is the process in making them. It's the exact same ingredients. So I've got 3 egg whites, and they're at room temperature. I'm going to put these in here, and then I am going to beat these to a stiff peak while that comes up to 240 degrees, and then we can move on to the next step. Before I forget, I just forgot because we added this to it. I should say I didn't just forget, I had forgotten, and I just remembered. I want to put a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar in here. Cream of tartar, you ask? Why? Glad you asked. It's because this will keep us from overbeating our egg whites. And that would be 1 gram. A 1/4 teaspoon is 1 gram of cream of tartar. And we'll put that in. Now we're going to beat this to stiff peak. This way we won't overbeat it, and it'll help us when we put our syrup in. Okay, we have hit 240 degrees, so I'm going to go ahead and shut my heat off. I'm going to pull this over here right quick as soon as I find something to grab it with, because it's a little warm. And we're going to do a little science experiment. So let's say you don't have a thermometer. This is also a way to double check just to make sure you're doing all right. Your syrup should be at what's called the softball stage. So what we'll do is we're going to take a little bit and drip it in there, and it should form a ball, which it did. I'll show you here. Just give me 1 second. It's getting awfully streamy. I don't know if you can see in there or not, just because it's clear, but right in there is a ball. There's actually two of them in there. And that's how we know we've hit the proper temperature. So we'll go ahead and get our thermometer out of there real quick. I can't put it in the water. And move this back over for a second. I know there's a lot going on. Now, as far as thermometers go, that's just like an average everyday thermometer that I bought. We actually own 3, including a good candy thermometer that the batteries are dead on. And I think Chris informed me one of them broke. And that just left my meat thermometer and that one. And this is double to the candy thermometer. So now that we've got our egg whites whipped into stiff peaks, what we're going to do is we're just going to drizzle this in real slow as it beats the eggs. Okay, we got that in there. That pan is heavy. So what we're going to do now is we're 7 minutes. Okay, so let's check it, see where we're at, and I'm going to lift this up as I turn it off. So that way I can get most of it off my whisk. And we'll see where we're at. Yeah, so we're still not there yet. We want stiff peaks. So we'll go ahead and continue to beat. It's only been about 3 or 4 minutes, but we'll go ahead and keep going for another 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, so I went ahead and switched it over to a mixing bowl. It was really starting to bog down my stand mixer. So we are at stiff peak. Pretty close to it at any rate. So what we're going to do next is we're going to add our vanilla to it. I got 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of vanilla. I'm going to put that in there, and then we're going to beat it for another couple minutes. Okay, so we got our stiff peaks. So I'm just going to, as quickly as I can, bring this together. I should probably use a wooden spoon, but that's all right. That's all right. Because what we're going to want to do, you got to work quick with this icing. If you don't, because it's essentially marshmallow fluff. We have just made marshmallows, is what it comes down to. We just didn't jet puff them, like the name brand implies. All right, so we're going to take a 1/4 cup of this right quick. About that much, and we're going to put it in with our nut and raisin mix. Get that in there like such. Maybe look how sticky that stuff is. Get this stirred in. Okay, so I got the first layer here. We're going to put our filling on the top, just like such. And we go ahead and get that smushed down and in. Okay, we got our filling in there. Now I'm going to grab the other cake. And we'll pick a side, any side. That side looks as good as any. Give it a good press down. And then we will put our icing, the rest of our icing on there. As soon as I can get a clean spatula. And shut that door. Or if somebody loses a head, or an eye. There is that. That. And find a home for that. And we will take a good cake spatula here. And we're going to start spreading this out so it's evening on the sides. Alright, so got our ice. I also took a minute to clean up the kitchen because it was a hot mess. But there we are. Is it the most perfect, show-worthy icing job ever? No, absolutely not. But it's close. Yeah, I would reckon to say that this will win my family and friends' hearts because I made it, and I made it with love. I think in some ways this is just a quick rant and then we'll finish up. People are so used to commercial made things that if they see the slightest imperfection they just assume it's, oh, that's horrible. Where in my mind an imperfection like this little wave here and this little wave here and even like right here where it's choppy, that says to me homemade, made with love, you know, and is probably going to taste 800 times better than anything you bought at the grocery store, pre-made, that's been frozen, sent to shipped across country, and put in a case. But that's my rant. Anyhow, let me get you down in here closer, and we're gonna just put some simple decoration on here before we eat, before we cut a slice and eat. You have to forgive me, I am the cameraman. Bet you didn't know that, did you? Bet you did, actually. I talk about it all the time. All right, so the only thing I have left to do to garnish this is I'm gonna stick some really sticky maraschino cherries on here. Everything about this cake is sticky. So I warn you, if you happen to have dentures, be forewarned. The icing is sticky. The maraschino cherries I'm putting on here, sticky. The fruits and nuts that I put on in the filling, sticky. Everything about this cake just screams sticky. Yeah, but that's all right. Sticky usually means tasty, and I'll run with tasty any day of the week. So we got our cherries on there. Look at that cherry, didn't even want to come off. And oh, I got one that's bleeding down the side. That's all right. Oh, I love the taste of maraschino cherries. Not healthy, but good. All right, I will stick some walnuts on here. This would almost make a wonderful 4th of July cake, really. Stick some blueberries on top for decor, and you would be in good shape. All right, got that last one to go on there. And there we are. There is our completely finished, ready to eat Lady Baltimore cake. That's bad, I almost forgot the name of it. I feel like we've been making this for days, but it's really only been a couple hours. For me at any rate, hopefully not that for you. All right, hold on for me 1 second. I'm gonna go grab a plate, a knife, and a fork. Okay, I'm back. So, let us cut us. I'm not gonna cut a big piece because it is early. I have not even had lunch yet. Now I will show you something as soon as I get this cut that it could happen to you too, but it still turned out okay, and I'm sure it would for you too. When you're dealing with icings and stuff, if you don't want, especially sticky icings, it's always good to warm your knife a little. That way we can get through it okay. But you get with minimal mess. I mean, could you imagine marshmallow fluff all over this thing and then trying to cut a second slice? That'd be a mess. All right, so we got that done. Let me clean the only dish I have at the moment. Thank you for your patience. And we will get the cake server thingy out, which is also a pie server. Well, at least it is in my house. Get up underneath that bad boy. There we are. Didn't quite cut perfect, that's all right. So my knife, if you didn't notice, is missing the tip. So it makes it quite the challenge sometimes to get down in that center piece, or down into the center, to get the whole piece. That's all right. Someday I have a good knife. I just don't ever bring it out for stuff like this. I just use it strictly for prep. But all the same, there is our cake in all its fame and glory. Doesn't look half bad. Now what I wanted to show you was, and this is how I know I overmixed it a little bit when I was making the icing. See how it's cracking right there already? That means it's dry, and it is dry. Do you know what that means though? It's still edible. That's all, you know, that matters, right? I don't know anybody besides, you know, maybe me and Chris that would even look at that if I made a cake and go, oh, here's a flaw. It didn't turn out that bad. But we're gonna try this. My mouth is watering. I'm so excited for this. I need to just get a little bit of the filling on the fork there. Maybe. That, ladies and gentlemen, is well worth the work. I wouldn't even say it was work. Eat this last little piece here. Yeah. The cake itself, super moist, super tender, quite delicious. And there's such a balance in the mixture of the raisins, the cherries, the figs, and the walnuts, and that filling, and just the right amount of icing. Just the right amount of icing. Maybe you can see it, but if you see, it's not uber thick on the top, and it gives it a really, really nice balance. That is a great cake, hands down. Now, I will say this, and it's nothing about this cake, it's more about me. I have learned that when it comes to a 7-minute icing, it's something I need to practice, and I'm going to. That's an amazing icing. It tastes great. It gets everywhere if you're not careful. But I want to master that icing. I want to master that icing and put it in my wheelhouse. Because that, I have friends and family that don't care for buttercream. I have friends and family that don't care for cream cheese icing. Where I, on the other hand, enjoy all icings. This would be a nice third option for them that I think they will enjoy. Plus, it's something you don't see every day. You know, so that would make it unique, and that's awesome. Although, if we do this right, we can make all of this mainstream. Who knows? So, but give this a try. I mean, hands down. And let me know if you do. Don't be intimidated by the icing. And if it is something that you don't want to try right now, but you want to try this cake, you can use a buttercream icing. You could even go to the store. No, I'm not even going to say that. You could use a buttercream icing or a cream cheese icing. Either one would work, you know, or cream cheese frosting. But give it a try, and give the icing a try. You know, it takes a minute, and you know, and patience and understanding, and you gotta. But it's a challenge. It's the first thing that's challenged me in a little while, to be honest with you. I mean, not that even the simplest things could be a challenge. But that was so different and unique that it really brought on a challenge, because this is the first time I've ever done this. You know, something I want to try again for sure. If you do try this, let me know down in the comments below, over on Facebook, however it works. Whatever works best for you. Next week, I have no idea what we're doing for dinner or dessert. We may do that carrot pie. I haven't decided yet for dessert, but really no idea for dinner. I have an idea, I guess. Chris sent me a recipe that she wants to try, or wants me to try so she can try it. And we may do that, but I'm gonna keep it a surprise so that way I'm not committed. So anyhow, till next week, I love you. I love you very much, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Tell somebody else you love them and that you love them very much. They may need to hear it, and it's gonna make them feel good to hear it. It's gonna make you feel good to tell them. I guarantee it. You making one of these Lady Baltimore cakes, guaranteed they're gonna know that you care, and that it's gonna lead to hours of conversation. Probably a good cup of coffee with it, because that really would go good with a cup of coffee. And you might make a new friend along the way, right? Neighbors, bring them over, cut them a piece, get to know each other. You know, lady down the street, older person that lives, you know, on your street that, you know, may need somebody to talk to. You know, all people that would enjoy this cake if you made it for them. All right, I'll see you next week. All right, till then, I love you. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.